Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
Good morning and hello again. I'm Rev Z, and you know what time it is. It's 7 o'clock in the Central Time, Mountain Time Zone, and it's time for Ministers Talking Shit. I tell you, it is such a day where there's so much going on. I didn't even know where to start. Reverend Briz is out today. I had in mind a cousin of mine, minister, CSL minister, who's a cousin of mine, but I couldn't get them on for this morning. So I'm hoping I can get her real soon. But today, as Reverend Briz is traveling out to our Camp Cedar Ridge and getting ready to do a big show out there, I wanted to look at some of the news that's going on today and really look at what's happening here. First and foremost, to all of my Denver Nuggets fans, we want to say woohoo to the Nuggets who went up 2-0 yesterday against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers have never won a conference game and never won a championship, so we're looking good, and we're hoping that happens immediately. So for all you out there today, if if you're a basketball fan, and sure, if you're a Nuggets fan, drop us a chat, and we will just love to hear from you, and can't wait to see what happens on Saturday. So let's just get into all of the stuff that's going on. I don't even know where to start, but I think the place that I will start, there's a new survey, news article, story, however you want to term it, that indicates that half of the world's lakes have dried up or are drying up. Now, this study has taken place since the early 1990s. So we got a good period of time to do this survey. And over half of them are drying up. And that is a problem because we know right now that there was an old saying that went, water is more precious than gold. I mean, it should have been obvious since our bodies are about 70% plus water. It depends on who's counting. And half of that on the planet right now in the lakes have dried up. So now we're going to have effects on crops and on obviously what we drink and recreation and livelihood in terms of fishing and and regeneration of the atmosphere because of how the circulation happens with the water. And so one of the questions I want to ask everyone here today, if you look at this scenario, in 30 years plus or minus, we've lost half of the lakes or the water in the lakes. What's going to happen in the next 30 years? The temperatures, we already know the temperature is increasing every year. And so we're going to be in some really difficult situations here if we can't get a hold of or get our heads around how are we going to sustain our water supply or our ecological relationship with this planet that we live on. So it'd be great to hear from someone. Give me a chat what you think about this situation. It is going to be interesting to see. They already got the El Nino coming in, which means it's going to be warmer for the next couple of weather cycles, annual cycles. And so we just had all this snow and rain, and let's hope let's hope that that gives us a little relief. But I think the pattern is showing that we're going to have to really be more conscious about water use and whatever we're doing to cause the atmosphere to heat up. So, recycling, hybrid cars, electric cars, if you can afford them, all those things that will help us save our planet. I mean, a lot of us might not be around when we get to that critical point if we can't turn it around, but our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren will be evolved into that new paradigm. So let's see if we can make that happen. And the next thing, your next story, I'm sure everybody's heard this one, that I think is a little bit, more than a little bit concerning, really. And that is this whole story on the debt ceiling. Now, this comes around every year. Every year we have this whole deal about the debt ceiling and raising our limits, and so we can pay our employees that work for the government and so forth, and our debts. And this debt ceiling happens on June 1st. Today's the 19th, right? So we have a short runway to get this done. And it seems like every year we know it's coming, but the politicians, they wait until, it seems, a couple of months before, and then now it's all this gyrations. The president is cutting his trip short to the G7, where they're talking about economic policies and debt ceiling. I guess they go hand in hand. And McCarthy said yesterday, the Senate leader saying, oh, well, I think we got the right people in the right room, and, we got the right ideas, and I think we can get a deal done. Well, these people in that room, whatever that room is, have been there. Why are we waiting now to have this conversation? Somebody tell me, please. Somebody drop something in the chat and let me know. Why have we waited till 2 weeks before to start really getting serious about the debt ceiling and raising all of the blood pressures around the world about, if this happens, interest rates for mortgages will go up almost 2.5%. Jobs will be lost. Our credit rating around the world will go down, which means some of our sanctions that we have will start to wane. I mean, there's so many ripple effects to this whole debt ceiling being resolved or not. And I would think that we could figure this out before 2 weeks before. And ideally, we should start talking about next year's debt ceiling on June 2nd. right after we get the first one, so we don't have to wait. Let's get it set. Let's put it on the side of the table. We may have some final working out to do as we get closer. Some things may change, but let's be proactive. Let's not wait until we get into this situation where we're scaring everyone to death about all manner of things, food prices, gas prices, everything. So that is going to be an issue that will stay with us. And that issue, I believe, not just the debt ceiling or not the debt ceiling, is how do we politically govern this country? How do we begin to have compassion for the people who this would really affect and is affecting now? And how do we begin to have decorum when we have meetings and go beyond, the little quick quotes to get a sound bite and all these different things that really put our country at peril? That is something that I think we really need to begin to look at and get involved in. We have to, even if we just go to city council meetings and school board meetings and participate in debates that by our elected officials. it's helpful. If you have an idea to put into the space, that may be all you do is to actively say, hey, I think this is the issue. Here are the concerns. Can you give me, how you're going to handle it? Because if we don't bring up the problems that we see, then they will persist. And as the saying goes, if you want to keep getting what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. And if you want it to change, then you do something different. And so I think that's where we are now. We need to begin to look at how we're going to do things differently. So each year we do not come up with these same, or every other year, or whatever the cycle is, where we have to spend an inordinate amount of time and money to do something that we should have a better pattern or approach to how we're going to do it. And so that I think that will be paramount as we move forward. Now, I for the story of the day, I think the story of the week, if not even the month or year, I have to take a deep breath because I'm going to talk about my home state of Florida, which is becoming an embarrassment to me. And the current governor, DeSantis. Now, sometime in the next 4 to 5 days, DeSantis is going to declare himself as a candidate to run for president. And so for those of you who may not be aware, or haven't watched the news cycle pretty much, there are 3 things that really scare me about DeSantis and what he's going to do if he becomes president. Because the first thing, I'm sure you're aware of the battle he currently has going on with Disney about moving, about not abiding by or wiping out some tax reliefs that they had agreed upon. And so there's an ongoing battle there. Disney just announced that they will not be bringing $1 billion campus to Florida, which was going to affect probably 2,000 jobs or so. Some of the people were coming from California for finance and IT and stuff. That's off the table, $1 billion campus. On top of that, he just signed a bill that says no organizations at publicly funded schools can use money to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. They can't promote it. They can't support it. They can't maintain them. And on top of that, they can't even participate in any social activity or social activism if they're getting money from the state program. Now, last I checked, one of the learning points of going to college, or one of the educational pieces of college, is learning how the government works. I mean, you get it in high school, but now you have a chance to be active in social activism and political conversations and all these kinds of things. And DeSantis is saying this can no longer happen if those schools are getting public funds. Now, I haven't seen all of the details yet, but believe me, that is disturbing. That is disturbing because if we're not educating our communities and our young people as they go through the educational system on what it means and what the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion is, and if you do, you're going to be subject to some real serious problems. Now we're creating a more separate union. Not, and so we're going to have more separatism. We're going to have more people criticizing others, and they're going to lead to this environment where no one really wants to understand or take a look at relationships between the various constituents in the community. What do you think is going to happen? How much more divided will this country become? And how long will it take for other countries around the globe with these same kind of nationalist kind of ideas begin to create these separation pockets where, people only care about themselves and no one else? It's an interesting story and situation we find ourselves in. And I recently, in terms of this whole thing about diversity, and I guess that the Florida has now become a state that says he made a statement, DeSantis, that is, that Florida is a state where woke comes to die, right? So he has this whole war on wokeness, as he says, where people are just, they're banning. The latest thing that's happened there's some books about the Holocaust that are being banned. And so now we're going to start banning books, and I get it. We don't want inappropriate material or inappropriate subjects to be provided to individuals that are not age appropriate for them to understand and have a rational conversation about it. But to ban books for high school students when we're grooming the minds that's going to lead the country, it's going to lead the world, and we're restricting things that used to be in the books. Now, I get it. If there's something that offensive, I mean, okay, we're walking on a razor's edge here, right? There's a thin line here of what we're going to do or how we approach this. But to just carte blanche ban books because they point out issues that you may not want to deal with, but they're still here. The issue is still here. It didn't change. It's not going to, because you banned me from reading the book, the issue is not going to change. And this guy DeSantis is scary. He is scary. He is an intelligent monster. And he fits the American profile, right? Ivy League graduate, went to Yale, graduated from Harvard with the law degree, served, and he was a lieutenant colonel, I think, in the Navy. So he has all of the trappings to be elected and to propagate these crazy ideas that are being placed in Florida, and is going to place that stuff around the world. I mean, here's one of the Facebook users says, "My husband and I have decided not to take our grandson to Disney World this year as planned," right? They're going to Disneyland in California because it's really scary to think about how the model of things that is going on in Florida will become the model of this country if DeSantis is president. Just think about it. I mean, we don't have to think hard either. I mean, that's the platform he's going to be running on, because that's going to be his model for what we need to do as a country. Here's another thing from Dr. Tracy. He says Florida is modeling a dangerous standard, with Texas just a half step behind them. And it's going to be more states, right? Florida and Texas, I think they're having a competition about who can be the craziest and who can stir up the most muddy water in terms of how we live and govern this country. It said, Tracy goes on to say, and those of us who believe in oneness and wholeness are mostly staying quiet and letting this happen. Now, as I said earlier, if you want to keep getting what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. Which means if you don't like what's happening, if you think this is a dangerous approach to govern and a dangerous precedent to set in our country, we have to get involved. If nothing else, be informed and go vote. Know what we're faced with, because think about it. Now this may seem like a shock to some of you. The news is only I would say half. I know I'm gonna be over generous. The things that hit the news are only half of the crazy stuff that are going on in these back rooms in Congress and in Senate and the House of Representatives to make all that one. There are things that are being made and signed that we don't know about until they're presented to the body and voted on, and boom, there you go. We have to be informed, people. Oneness indicates that there is nothing that's not connected. Everything is connected. So earlier we talked about the water or the lakes drying up. Now, Florida has a lot of lakes. I would love to see if they dissected it about not the oceans. I'm just talking the lakes, because they have a lot of lakes for recreational fishing and bass contests and angler contests. Florida is a tourist state because of Disney and the fishing and those kinds of things. And so if that stuff gets in jeopardy, the economy in Florida is going to change, right? And as Dr. Tracy said, we're going to have these kinds of models of governing popping up. If you don't believe me, look at what happened in Tennessee. They ousted the two young brothers. They came back, but then they ousted a trans member of the, I forget if it was their House of Representatives in Montana. They censored it, can't even speak. Now, if the people have elected a spokesman for them, and the body can say, well, we don't recognize your person, and we gonna censor them so they can't say nothing, what are we coming to? Somebody, please tell me, what are we coming to if we can't figure out how we're going to be civil, intelligent, non-malicious, because some of this stuff seems very malicious, that we create an environment for our young people and for ourselves even, that every man for itself, or every group for itself. And that's what it seems like we're moving towards. And I'm hoping that we can figure this out. Now, here's the even scarier part. DeSantis is not even in the race yet, but they're indicating that soon as he jumps in, the race is going to be between him and Donald Trump. Now, there are other people there. Tim Scott is supposed to jump in. Pence is supposed to jump in. Nikki Haley from South Carolina is in. So there's a whole lot of fledglings, if you will, that are in this race. But imagine if it gets down to selecting either the former president, Donald Trump, and Governor of Florida, DeSantis, for the candidate of the Republican Party. I mean, just think about that for a minute and what that will be like. I'm hoping we as a people can figure this out. It's interesting, and I would love to hear. There's the argument. We'll see how many people take the bait, if you will, that neither Trump nor President Biden should be running. That they're too old. That we need new ideas. That we need younger people. And I'll leave my judgment out of that. But just think about what that looks like and what that's going to cause people to do and vote. and more importantly, what it might cause younger people not to do if neither one of the candidates from either of the parties they believe can be effective in that position, that they're too old, that they don't have a clear insight on the issues facing the country. I mean, the programs on LGBTQ, the banning of books, the defunding DEIB programs in Florida should be enough not to vote DeSantis in. So I'm hoping that we can really begin to have conversation. Let's start having conversations about the political process, not just in Florida and what's going to happen, but what's going to happen across the country. We know during the last election that they did redistricting of a lot of voting communities, so that now they're rigged, if you will, to put more Republicans in office. It seems that way. I haven't looked at all the districts, but I know there was a lot of redistricting going on. And so, one thing we do here on this program is we like to highlight the issues or concerns that are facing us as one global community, because although we're talking about policies in the United States, they will affect everywhere. And so let's begin to even though they're going to try to get rid of the DEIB programs in Florida, let's begin to have more of those. Let's begin to have real, honest conversations about the differences of culture, the differences of so-called race. We're a human race, because other than that is just another separation. But of cultures, of the white culture, the black culture, the African culture, or the Asian culture. There are different ways that people live because of the environment that they grew up in. Let's begin to talk about that, and we'll begin to see that what we perceive as differences are only perceptions. The relationship to that begins to be very clear when you begin to ask someone who lives in a rainforest and ask someone who lives in the desert what the relationship is between rain. Let's say in the rainforest it rains almost all the time. In the desert it almost never rains. So their perspective of this one thing, rain, is going to be very different, and they may begin to disagree about the benefit of rain or the use of rain or all manner of things. But when they begin to see it from the perspective of the environment and culture that they're in, you can have a different respect for that idea, for that people, for the way they deal with certain subjects. And that's what we need to do in this country. There are a lot of issues facing us. We've talked about half the lakes drying up. We've talked about the all of this stuff going on with DeSantis. We talked about the debt ceiling this morning. But one thing we know for sure, it's affecting everyone. It does not exclude anyone. And so it behooves us to begin now, as we get into this next political cycle, to educate ourselves. And when we do that, let's think of it in terms of oneness, so that we begin to think about ways we can be involved, ways we can make the process better. And so with that, I'm gonna wish everyone a happy weekend. Summer is almost here. It's raining a lot here in Colorado, so the grass is growing and the flowers are starting to bloom, and I'm looking forward to getting out and getting involved and being involved in the community and community fairs and all these different things where I get a chance to interact with people and exchange ideas and support the oneness of reality. And so I trust everyone will have a great weekend. We love you here at at New Thought Media. My co-host, Reverend Briz, will be back tomorrow. Next Friday. But tomorrow, they're doing a broadcast from Cedar Ridge. So check the lineup for tomorrow, because all day they'll be doing different types of exposés, if you will, of the Cedar Ridge camp and the work that's going on there. So it's going to be a great day for the camp, great day for us to get involved and see what's going on. And I just trust that everyone will be there and work hard on creating a world that works for everyone. Peace and blessings.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.